All right, I want to have a real short video here where we discuss, or I have you start to develop vocabulary regarding circles. So circles is our next unit. And so this item I have in the video, I will have it on Schoology, or you can just pause the video and have a piece of notebook paper where you are going to write a few notes down. So if you're going to use a piece of notebook paper, we are going to come up with a definition of a chord and a tangent, a secant, a central angle, and an inscribed angle. So you might want to write those words down. And then we will formalize all of this in the next lesson, but I want to do a real quick activity where you come up with a definition on your own first. Okay, so for a chord, I want you to pause the video and I want you to look at these examples. Okay, so AB is a chord here. These are counter examples, which means they are not chords. So what I want you to do is pause the video and either in your mind or on your notebook paper, write down a quick definition of what do you think a chord is with respect to a circle. Okay, so hopefully you have an idea in mind. What I want you to notice is all three of these examples are inside the circle and they go from one side of the circle to the other. Whereas on this counter example, this is going through the circle. This is just touching the circle. These two, this one is not touching the circle itself, but this one only one part is. So basically a chord, what you see on the left, it's a segment in a circle. So I am going to informally define a chord as a segment in circle. Okay? Now it has to go all the way from one part of the circle to the other. All right, so that is a chord. All right, I want you to do the same on tangent. Pause the video, look at the examples and the non-examples, and let's see if we can come up with a brief, informal definition. All right, what I want you to see on the examples, tangent never goes into the circle, whereas these counter examples are showing it going through or it's inside. The other thing I want you to see, I'm going to put a point right here. It is touching the circle at one spot. Okay, so these tangents here, that's the big definition I want you to sort of work on today. We're showing a line here. It could be a segment or a ray. So it's outside the circle, and then I'm going to say here, touch at one point on circle. Okay, so like I said earlier, we're just coming up with real informal definitions here because I just want you to be working with these new words. All right, so it's outside the circle and it's going to touch the circle at one spot. Okay, let's move on to secant. I'd like you to do the same idea. Look at the examples, look at the counter examples, and let's see if we can come up with an informal definition. Okay, secants. Do you see that all of these go through the circle and out the other side? Through the circle, through the circle. This is a tangent that we talked about, and these are not going through the circle. So the big deal on a secant is it is a line that goes through the circle. Oops. So I'm just going to write that kind of real informally. Line through circle. Okay. So it goes in one side of the circle, out the other, and they are going to be lines. All right, central angle. See if you can come up with an informal definition by looking at the examples and non-examples. Okay, on the examples, it tells us that O is the center. So, do you see how on the examples, the angle is inside the circle, all right, and the vertex of the angle is the center. So vertex is center, vertex is center. On the non-examples, the vertex is not being used as, or I'm sorry, the center is not being used as the vertex. Okay, so a central angle, let's see, angle in circle, and then I'm going to say the center is vertex. Okay, so it's got to be inside the circle, and it's going to be using the center as the vertex of that angle. All right, when you have central angle done, look at the inscribed angle, and I want you to come up with an informal definition. So pause the video. Okay, inscribed. So I want you to look at the vertex. The vertex is on the edge of the circle, on the circle, on the circle. These vertices, this one's going outside. This is a central angle that we just talked about. And this one just, the end point is not touching the circle. So on an inscribed angle, it's an angle where you of course need to have the endpoints of the angle on the circle, but the vertex is somewhere else on the circle. Okay, so I'm gonna say here inside, so it's inside. I'm gonna say here vertex on circle. And maybe that's all I'll say right there, okay? Now we are gonna work on these angles more in a few sections. So what I want you to do now, I want you to focus on secant, chord, tangent, and secant. And of course, we're also going to bring in what you already know about diameter and radius. And so I have a quick item in Schoology called Circles Vocabulary, where you are clicking on segments or the items on the picture that represent what is being asked. So I will say, for example, click on all the chords. So you're going to have to like click on them, and sometimes it can be a little fussy. You have to make sure your mouse gets just in the right spot where you can click on it and highlight it. Okay, so that's all I want to do for this kind of introductory part. And so if you want to switch over to Schoology and do that, and then we'll get into the first